Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something called the electric sujood. Our source material for this one covers a literally groundbreaking experiment that sits right at the fascinating intersection of plant biophysics and ancient scripture. Let's just jump right in. So, here's the central mystery we're unpacking today. Can a leaf physically hear and, more importantly, biologically respond to one specific spoken word? Our source text sets up this wild narrative bridging the gap between a literal reading of ancient scripture and the hard, cold data of modern electrophysiology. It's a huge question, right? And honestly, how these researchers actually went about answering it is absolutely captivating.
Okay, to understand how this all unfolded, we've got to meet the players at Wageningen University over in the Netherlands. The research was spearheaded by Dr. Zakaria Al-Kortubi, but right there alongside him was his colleague Dr. Peter van Huysen. Now, Peter was a staunchly materialist Dutch botanist. His initial, super skeptical stance is perfectly captured in this quote from the text. Plant electrical signals are random. There is no room for prostration. Basically, he firmly believed that whatever electrical activity happens in a plant is just the chaotic random discharge of calcium and potassium ions. Just noise, nothing more.
This perfectly illustrates the profound philosophical clash going on in this lab. On one hand, you have Peter's materialist view of random ion discharge, but on the other, you have Dr. Zakaria's hypothesis. See, Zakaria was looking at a very specific verse in the Quran, Surah Ar-Rahman, verse 6, which states that stars and trees prostrate or perform sujood. Zakaria hypothesized, well, what if this isn't just a metaphor? He wondered if this prostration might actually have a measurable physical reality in the plant. Like, could a leaf literally bow down or produce a specific shift in cellular voltage?
To actually test this out, Zakaria had to measure the plant's action potential. If you're not familiar, this is basically the process where external stimuli, think touch, heat, or even sound, cause ion channels in a plant cell wall to open up, which generates electrical spikes. So Zakaria hooked up a highly sensitive Mimosa pudica, the sensitive plant, using this microscopic 0.1 micron electrode to record its membrane potential. He really wanted to see exactly how the plant's electrical spikes reacted to different audio stimuli.
To build on this, he set up 3 distinct acoustic tests. First up, he played white noise. The plant's response? Just erratic, totally unstable spikes. Next, he played a Beethoven symphony. The spikes were, well, maybe slightly more organized at first, but they quickly devolved into instability again. But then came the third test. He played a slow, emotional recitation of that specific Quranic verse containing the Arabic word yasjudan, which means they prostrate.
And within 10 seconds, the erratic waves on the oscilloscope completely transformed. The really crucial takeaway here is the flawless synchronization. Literally, every 1.8 seconds, the electrical spikes perfectly match the exact phonetic rhythm of the word yasjudan. We're talking a large spike for the long ya, a pause for the sin, a rise for the jim, and a rapid fall for the dal. The plant was quite literally electrically mirroring the human pronunciation.
To understand exactly what on earth he was looking at, Zakaria applied a Fourier transform. That's a mathematical method that takes a signal from the time domain and converts it into the frequency domain. And by doing this, the data revealed a complete 3-dimensional electrical hologram of the word Yasudan generated by the plant itself. The source text describes this totally astonishing moment right here. As the final letter of the word was recited, the mimosa leaf physically bent its petiole downwards, dropping for 3 full seconds, literally mimicking the posture of prostration, before slowly rising back up.
No way, right?
Of course, Dr. Peter, ever the skeptic, immediately declared this an artifact of the electrodes. He tried to debunk the whole thing by creating a synthetic multi-tone. He basically extracted the top 20 frequencies from the human recitation and blasted them at the plant with the exact same amplitude and phase. The result? The oscilloscope just showed random noise. The leaf trembled a bit, sure, but it absolutely did not bow down. Peter's synthetic tone had completely failed to trigger the response. So, Zakaria points out exactly why Peter's attempt failed, and it introduces this concept called the time-domain formant transition. Zakaria explained to him, look, you successfully copied the frequencies, but you missed the vocal transient. That's the crucial 200 millisecond acoustic shift between the sibilant, hissing sound of the sin and the plosive, explosive sound of the jim in human speech. Zakaria argues that this specific, transient shift unique to human pronunciation is the exact key that unlocks the plant's biological reaction. If we look under the hood at the cellular mechanics, Zaccaria applied a fluorescent calcium indicator called GCamp to actually see inside the cells. And what he discovered is that the human recitation triggers very specific calcium oscillations. These oscillations then activate the pulvinous motor cells at the base of the leaf. Once activated, these cells rapidly release water. That naturally lowers the turgor pressure, causing the leaf to become heavy and physically drop under its own weight into that bowing posture. It's kind of like releasing the air from a tire.
At this point, Peter decided to test this specific calcium signature for himself, and his data reveals something really striking. Check this out. When he simply said the word hello to the plant, 0 calcium spikes, nothing. When he played white noise, the spikes were erratic, and the plant's stomata, its microscopic pores, stayed completely open. But when he played the recording of Yajudan, the calcium spikes surged by 200%, and the plant's stomata actually closed by 40%, for a plant that is a clear biological indicator of entering a state of rest.
So you're probably wondering, why this specific word? Well, the answer lies in acoustic resonance. Zaccaria measured the threshold of the mechanosensitive ion channels in those pulvinous motor cells, and he found something wild. They are specifically tuned to a frequency of exactly 240 Hz. And get this, the phonetic pronunciation of the jim in the Arabic word yasjudan contains a formant at exactly 240 Hz. The researchers concluded that the plant literally possesses an embedded receptor that specifically resonates with the exact acoustic wave of this one word.
This data actually leads to an incredibly emotional climax in our source text. Late one night, Peter attached the microelectrodes to a simple, everyday tomato plant in the lab. He played the recitation in his headphones, and when the word Yesjadon played, the tomato leaf slowly lowered. The text notes that Peter was literally moved to tears. He wrote in his diary, "I cannot call this data false. A specific word opens that channel in a posture of prostration." After 40 years of studying plants, the hardcore materialist had seen the evidence with his own 2 eyes. The big culmination of all this research happened at the International Plant Electricity Conference. Dr. Zaccaria presented his findings by overlaying 3 separate graphs right on top of each other: the acoustic spectrogram of the recitation, the mimosa plant's calcium spike train, and a computer-generated acoustic model of the word itself. The result? A staggering 99.9% identical match. For Zaccaria and his team, this was the smoking gun proving an undeniable electrohydraulic reality.
But honestly, the most dramatic moment of the conference wasn't even the data itself, it was what happened right after. Dr. Peter Van Heusen stood up in front of all his peers. He publicly renounced his former materialist views and completely validated Zaccaria's findings. He announced to the scientific community that he had tested it himself, and he openly acknowledged the researchers' conclusion that these plants actually possess a resonant frequency embedded in their cells that responds to this very specific acoustic trigger.
Now, beyond the profound philosophical implications here, this discovery actually has massive real-world agricultural impact. The lab, which is now renamed the Sajda Plant Research Center, discovered that playing this recitation reduces stomatal conductance, again, those are the leaf pores, in crops like tomatoes, wheat, and cotton by about 30%. By triggering the plant to close its pores and hold on to water internally, it essentially activates the plant's natural water conservation process. This significantly increases the crop's resistance to drought stress. The sound literally helps these plants survive in harsh, dry conditions, a real game changer.
The source text closes out not just with the hard scientific data, but with a deeply poetic reflection by Dr. Zaccaria. He writes that while some people might just brush this off as mere electrical signals, he believes the plant is actually holding on to a biological truth embedded in its very genetics. And the text leaves us with this incredibly provocative final thought, one that perfectly summarizes this whole journey, from a lab experiment to a profound philosophical question. If a plant's microscopic calcium channels are perfectly tuned to hear and respond to its creator, does your heart? It's a truly fascinating piece of source material, and I hope this explainer helped you grasp the incredible mechanics and the absolute mystery behind the electric sujood.